Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to second panel discussion. My name is Raden, and I am the moderator for this session. It's been a very great pleasure for me to welcome the hold on, the first speaker, Miss Natasha Gulati. Miss Natasha Gulati is from Advisor Clinical Solution. She is Elsevier Clinical Solution Manager for Malaysia and Singapore. She has over 7 years of strategy consulting experience, specializing in health technology innovation, company strategy, business model design, and customer experience enhancement. Second, I would like to invite our second speaker from UKM, Associate Professor Dr. Shahrul Mizan Ismail. Dr. Shahrul Mizan Ismail is an associate professor of law at the Faculty of Law, National University of Malaysia, UKM. He was the Deputy Director, Learning Technologies Center for Teaching and Learning, UKM, between 2017 to 2019. He is also advocate and solicitor of the High Court of Malaysia, and was called to Malaysian Bar in 2004. The last speaker is Rauf Rashid from IMU. Looking at his biodata, I think too long. So I just give a shortcut, short form. He is very active in IMU. To this date, he represents the student as a president of Student Representative Council. You're very active guy. Your resume is very long. Okay. Okay. Thank you for spending your time over here. So I hope that your travel come to here is not that bad. Is it? Okay. May I start? Okay. So the first question I would like to ask, because I miss my lecturer so much, I'm so from UKM, so I want to hear my lecturer voice again. The first question is, what is the definition of understanding of about personal learning experience, in your opinion?
Hi. Hello everyone. Hi. Assalamualaikum. Salam sejahtera. Right. I will be speaking from my own experience as a lecturer from the Faculty of Law who
Sure.
exercises or uses or implements personalized learning in my classes. Because I'm not from the Faculty of Education, so I will be talking from my own experience. So I think if you talk about personalized learning, you can talk about it from four aspects actually. You can talk about it from the aspect of the pace of the learning process itself, meaning you personalize it to customize the learning process according to the pace of the students. So each student is a different type of learner, so different types of learner has different pace. Some students are very fast in catching up with the course, some students are very slow, some students are average. So you basically tailor-made the progression of the course according to the personal pace of each student. So that's one way of how you can look at it. Second way is how you can personalize the learning space for the students. So some students, they learn from, they are comfortable learning together with friends collaboratively. Some students, they need to be independent on their own in a more private space. Some students need to lie down. Some students need to be sitting on a couch. So you can look at personalized learning from that aspect as well. Another aspect of looking at it is to personalize the way how the course is being delivered to the students. Some students are, I think everybody knows this, some students are visual learners, so they learn more by looking at things. Some students learn more by listening. Some students have to do in order to learn effectively. Some students have to read and write. And there are many types of how you can actually deliver the course content. So these are among the aspects of personalization of the learning process that I have actually used in my class. So yeah, for me, that's how you can look at personalized learning. Yes.
Do you have different type of content cater to different type of students?
Different the content is actually some of, because I'm teaching law, so some of the content, in fact most of the content is actually something that is being required, something that is required from our professional body, which is the Bar Council of Malaysia. So I cannot actually allow students to pick and choose in terms of the main topics, because this is what is required from the professional body. But what I am doing, actually because I am doing that this semester, I will be doing it again for next semester, I allow my students to actually pick and choose the subtopics of the main topics that they want to learn. In fact, I usually ask my students to construct some parts of the course outline themselves. The first week, for example, or maybe before the semester even starts, I usually already started having discussions with them via Zoom, and I already asked them to actually, go out, go to law firms, go to the courts, and meet with people from the industry, try and check whether what is the most important court procedure that we have to learn for the upcoming semester. So that's what they do. That's one thing, allowing them to pick and choose the subtopic. That's one thing. Another one that I allow my students to do is to pick the emphasis. So meaning maybe the topic is the same as required by the professional body, but the emphasis is actually something that they can choose. I also allow my students to actually choose the way how they want to be assessed. For example, last semester I had this something called talent-based assessment. So although it is actually a law class, they learn court procedures, but I asked them to actually choose a method of how they can show to me that they have mastered the topics. So some of them did musical shows, some of them did theatre, some of them did something. This is a law class, So this is it is not something normal to have those things in a law class. But I allow them according to what they feel is the best way to express their mastery of the knowledge. Okay.
Right. For Xavier, yeah, I think like you are, I'm sure that you work well with a lot of SME, the lecturer providing content to you. And how do you develop a good learning experience on Xavier's side?
Thank you. I want to just first of all open by thanking IMU for having me here today. Uh, so coming back to your question a little bit about the content and the learning experience, we at Elsevier believe that in a perfect scenario, personalized learning must differentiate between content and course goals. So we at Elsevier say that content is important because the way courses are structured today, degrees are structured today, it's all content based. But if we want to truly move towards personalized learning, we have to move away from content and we have to start thinking about the course goals. So what are the goals that you must achieve from a certain module or a certain program? Based on that module goals, you must design your content or your teaching methodology. So, in a perfect learning scenario, the learning experience could revolve around customized content also. So, for example, in the scope of medicine, you could have the same course goals, but different books, different content readings, different sources of content assigned to a class of students, right? So, one student could have one area, the other one could have a different source area, but your course goals remain the same. That's the kind of learning experience you want to give in a perfect personalized learning scenario, albeit it is still very far away. We're not there yet. Current programs are designed based on content, so we have to try to modify the content, customize the content as much as we can. But our future goal should be to move away from content and look at course goals that the students or the faculty want to achieve from a particular module.
Right, thank you. It's very strong point from you. We are not there yet, right? But we are going towards that way. I think it's a good thing on our side also. This one, a very technical question for you. Yep. What is personalized learning in classroom from student point of view? What do you understand from personalized learning?
To be very, very honest, I have never come across this term personalized learning until a few days ago a few weeks ago when I was invited for this forum. That's when I started reading up a little bit about personalized learning. But that should say something. That should say about how students lack the experience with personalized learning. We've been so exposed to the traditional mindset of learning being, okay, I have a teacher here and I have a student, it's just one-way transmission. So um, but having read up, my opinion of personalized learning would be that students having a say in what they want to learn, or having goals and targets about what they want to achieve in learning. Um, and what Prof mentioned, oh, sorry, what our professor from UKM mentioned, how you allow students the freedom to choose how they want to be assessed or how they want to learn I think that's what I feel personalized learning should be.
You get a chance to be assessed that way?
Uh, Definitely not. I think it takes a lot of time to progress towards that mindset in the first place. Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you. What about you, Prof?
What was
From
the
your point
question
of
again?
view, personalized learning from your point of view, meaning
Personalized.
that in classroom, the setting in the classroom, do you allow like the content to be in cater to the personalized learning style?
Okay, I think we have to look at this question of to what when we want to allow personalized learning or we want to implement personalized learning in class, how much of personalization are we talking about here? Because based on my own personal experience, sometimes yes, personalization of learning process is good, but there are but you have to also think about to what extent must the personalization be allowed? Because too much personalization will not prepare them for the industry as well. Okay, because okay, but when you talk about personalization in my class, for example, based on my experience, I go from as simple as allowing the students to be comfortable in class because I basically allow the students to um, eat in class, um, go out whenever they feel that they are tired. So um, they can also check their Facebooks and Instagrams whenever I'm giving lecture in front. But if they feel that they need to go onto the social media, they can. Some of them needs to check Google whenever they hear me saying something, a new term for them, they want to immediately check. So I'm trying to cater to their personal learning style as much as possible because UKM is one of the oldest university in Malaysia. The Faculty of Law of UKM is one of the oldest law school in Malaysia. So the building is in the process of being transformed so that it has a learning space, a proper learning space where students can be more flexible in their learning. But at the moment, we don't have a learning space of that nature. So I'm still teaching in a big lecture hall. So I try to personalize it in the way of how I allow the students to be comfortable in class. That is the simplest version of personalized learning. Another way of personalizing the learning process is like what I said to you just now, by allowing them to personalize the assessment process according to what they feel is the best way to show their mastery of the knowledge. I also allow students to choose, how do I say this? It's like a buffet. I One topic, for example, I don't have a fixed lecture and tutorials. Wednesday is a class that I requested. I requested Wednesday as my class day from the faculty, the whole day. So there are topics which I give a buffet for them. For example, morning will be lecture, afternoon will be learning by gamification for kinesthetic learners, and after 2 p.m. it will be reading and writing cases and all this. This is basically for those who prefers to learn by reading and writing. So the students basically have the freedom of choosing which of these classes that they want to enter according to what they feel is more suitable for them. But you will notice that as much as we educators want to give them the freedom of choosing the learning process that suits them the best, but sometimes students will choose something that is the most convenient for them, although that might not be the learning style that is most suitable for them. So these are among the things that I use in class. I also personalize the pace. Usually, okay, for this semester, for example, my classes started online a month before the semester opens. So basically, I put all the theoretical parts on openlearning.com. It's a virtual class. I have Zoom discussions with the students every week. And when the semester opens and I started my class, the first class when I started my class, I give them quizzes. And from the quizzes, I could see that they have already mastered the theoretical part. So the rest of the semester is all doing active learning in class and whatnot. Yeah. So when they were on the MOOC, when they were doing the MOOC in openlearning.com, it is also a form of personalized learning where they can just access the course from anywhere at any time, any device, and yeah, that's that. Yeah.
Okay, the next question is for both panel first and second, a bit controversial. What are the learning experience that is ideal for Gen Z student? Because I give you some situation. Yeah, I believe that students are all ready to embrace technology, but the educator, they seem to have reluctant to move towards that way. So what is ideal for you?
Can I can I say that now again? This is the dilemma of personalized, right? There's an Elsevier opinion that I must give, and then there is my personal opinion which I want to give. So that's again the paradigm that we're going through. So Elsevier opinion will say that no, technology is the way forward. Gen Z needs to be engaged through technology platforms. But my personal opinion, I would actually challenge you that is Gen Z really ready to adopt technology? We understand that they are very well versed with technology. They can use it to their ample benefit. And we need to empower the students with the right technology platforms. But can we trust them with that technology? I don't think we're there yet. Our students, let's just say they lack that certain level of maturity. If we, for example, if we give them too much independence on any kind of platform, be it technology, be it gamification, be it open door learning, be it modified flexible classrooms, there needs to be empowerment of the students, but at the same time there needs to be a guide behind them as well who manages that student journey. So we can't just leave the Gen Z with technology and say, oh, this is the perfect scenario. No, we need technology, we need to give them that Gen Z experience, but we need to be able to manage it. So to answer your question on what does it mean for Gen Z, in my opinion, the most important thing for Gen Z is to let them take control. Let them decide the pace at which they want to learn. So one of the things that we recommend faculty to do very often is to begin your semester, begin your program with a goal setting, that you speak to every student, look at their performance history. And this actually happens in Australia. In Australia, even before students go into the university already has their record right down from childhood on their educational performance, right? So you use that history, you talk to the student, you understand the student's goals and aspirations, and then create an education plan that will map to the course goals that you also have. So that empowerment discussion with the student is the first thing that I believe Gen Z students want. They want to have that feeling that, okay, I'm in control of my education journey. And then you can provide whatever tools you want, be it technology or open classrooms, whatever it might be.
Ideal for Gen Z.
Okay, I really like what you have just said because I agree with some of the things that the first panel has said. Okay, when we talk about personalized learning and industry, education 4.0, 21st century education, we tend to have this perception that it has to be very technological, very technology based, so on and so forth. But I believe that digital literacy is only one of the criteria. If you want to really decide what is the best learning experience for Gen Z, I think based on my own experience, what I do is I ask Gen Z themselves, what is the best way that you think you can learn this, or you should be assessed about this topic, on this topic. So my first approach is to allow the students to decide themselves in terms of what is the best learning experience for them. But I noticed one thing based on my based on my teaching experience. I noticed one thing. I'm not sure if this happens in all the other countries in the world, but I noticed that in Malaysia, the students are not very honest about actually what is best for them. They will choose something that is more convenient for them. So for example, lecture is the most convenient actually because they will get everything from the lecture. The lecturer will give everything, the slides, the content. They will just have to remember and memorize, and then they will just have to parrot all those things back on the exam paper. So that is the most convenient. So even if that is not the best for them, they might not be very honest about it. They will just say that is the best, but that is actually not the best. Okay, so another method that I use with my students is try and error. So my class is like action research all the time. It's like I will conduct one method and I will research on whether or not that method is effective. And based on my experience for that particular semester, in the upcoming semester, I will change it and I will improve it. But I would have to be very honest as well. this is not a very easy process, because Gen Z, one of the criteria of Gen Z is also they are very frank about what they have experienced. So they will, in UKM, for example, UKM is a Malaysian university. It's a national university. So the students are very polite. The students are very Malaysian, okay? But when you give them a piece of paper, you give them platform for them to say something, they will tell you what they think about the learning experience. I've had the experience of students using the F word in my feedback form because they were very unhappy because I used this method called time pressure based assessment, which I adopted from Harvard Law School. I adapted the method for my own students. They were very unhappy about it because it was a pressure based assessment. I used transformative education. So they use the F word, they say things, but if you want to really know to answer your question, what is the best learning experience for Gen Z, you really have to be open about this, put away all those negative comments and just focus on what they want, what they have experienced. So then for the next semester, you try to improve, and then you try again. So it's like action research every semester. So coming back to your questions, what is the best learning experience? First, you ask them, but they might not tell you the truth because they will choose the most convenient answer. Second is to try and error.
Since we have Gen Z over here, so tell what is inside your mind, what is inside your friend's mind.
So actually, I'm part of Gen Y.
Then why?
So if we look at the definition, but it's okay. I can speak for Gen Z. I'm sure I can speak for Gen Z as well because my classmates, my course-mates are all from Gen Z. So here's the thing. Like in the question itself, we see an oxymoron. We classify and generalize who are Gen Z people and what their characteristics are. And I like to echo what my fellow speakers have also mentioned, that you cannot just generalize what students are. You're supposed, in personalized learning, it's about understanding how each individual learn and how we can cater to the needs of each individual student. So with that being said, personalized learning should be very catered to each student and each individual. How we see that, how we can implement that here it's very difficult, because growing up, whether it's lecturers or whether it's students, we have grown up with the mindset that, as I mentioned just now, it's a one-way street. And because of this inculcation, it's very difficult for us, like you said about convenience, how students feel like it's convenient to attend lectures and just rote learning and write the examinations. But it's because we have grown up that way, because we are not influenced or not introduced to the idea of personalized learning. We have never been allowed to take charge of what we want to know. It's always been, okay, this is the curriculum set for you. You learn it in this way and you write the exam in this way. I think in my institution and also in many other institutions, what we see is that students would like practice papers from staff members so that they can practice for their exams and so that they can get good grades for their exams. I think that speaks for itself also, that students just find it very convenient to work in that way because we were not exposed to a different sort of learning, one that we can take charge of.
Thank you for your point. I think it's very valid point also. I think, and on our side, I have to admit what you say is true also. Okay. Now, looking for future, what do you think the learning style curve in education now and maybe 2 or 3 years to come for panel number 2?
Okay, can you explain further by that question?
The style curve right now, we are focusing on personalized learning. So how the personalized learning will grow in future? Is it like going to be stagnant over here? Or because I think for education, people always like to do things as a concept 1 or 2 years, and then when the initiator pass away, God forbid, then the initiative will die.
You want a frank answer? I don't know whether it's going to stay or whether it's going to go away. But as someone, I think if we have sufficient number of educators who believe in the benefit of this method, and like myself, I've tried using the method. It works for my student. It works for me. I believe in it, so I will continue using it. If you remember, once upon a time, we were in Malaysia, we were very busy talking about problem-based learning, and that was like 10 years ago. And after that, it became quiet. But those of us who still believes in PBL, still practice PBL, those who just wants to have a feel of it because it was the in thing at that particular time, they tried it and then they went back to the conventional method. So I think whether it's going to stay or whether it's going to die after this, I think it depends very much on the type of educator who uses the method. If you were to ask me personally on based on my own experience, I would definitely be using it. In fact, I will be expanding it to even more types of personalized learning for my students. But if I could just add one more thing, what you said before in the previous question about the lecturers not being prepared for digital technology, I have a different take on this. Some people might say that if you want to be educator 4.0, if you want to be 21st century educator, you have to use technology. I also go around the country under several programs under the ministry, under the university, where I train lecturers from polytechnics, from universities on how to be educator 4.0. I just came back from one program, and there was one particular, because at the end of a 5-day program, we have a simulation, teaching simulation as an assessment process for the participants. One participant, I remember, he's actually trying to use augmented reality in class. It sounds really posh, augmented reality in class, yeah? But what he ended up doing was basically giving one piece of marker or trigger of the augmented reality to the students, the students in the simulation. So the students scanned the trigger and out came a 15 minutes video of calculating trigonometry. So after that, that's it. That's the end of it. That's an example of, yeah, he knows how to use augmented reality. He is digital literate, but by the end of the day, is the learning experience meaningful for the student? It's basically just listening to a lecturer giving calculation in front. You just transfer it in the form of scanning and it comes out. So I don't think technology should be the determining factor of whether a lecturer is educator 4.0, a good lecturer or not. It's whether you can actually serve or cater to the needs of the Gen Z. That's more important. Even if you don't use technology, you are reluctant to use it, but as long as you're not reluctant to fit or to cater to these needs of the new generation, then you're still I mean like educated, 21st century educated.
I think the keyword here is reluctant. If we are reluctant to proceed, then we will still stuck in the same way, doing the same thing, but just different method of introducing your content. What about you, Miss Natasha?
So, I agree with your point about whether you agree with doing certain things or not, right? Because if we think about it, the term personalized learning might be very new, but the concept is not. Actually, personalized learning as a term was introduced more than 10 years ago. And in principle, what is it? It is the ability of a teacher or a faculty to be able to support a student in realizing their education goals. In principle, we have been doing that from day one, right? We, all of us as faculty, want to be able to support our students in achieving their goals. So as a concept, it's always been there. How we implement the concept is changing gradually, and that is such a gradual change that you will not be able to say, oh, personalized learning is happening today. You can't say that. It's a gradual change. It's a trend which will take on. It will continue to keep evolving over a period of time, and we will learn new ways of teaching. Universities will come up with new methods of teaching. New courses will be designed. It will happen over a period of time, like an evolution. It's not going to be that, oh, now we've achieved personalized learning. It doesn't work like that. It's a gradual change which will come about, but slowly and steadily.
Thank you for your answer. Uh, for student.
Okay. So first, I would like to say that, in the ideal society, as technology advances, we want to embrace the technology and use it in our platform of personalized learning as well, whether it's by big data or whether it's by machine learning. These are ideals. Unfortunately, in reality, what we see is that it's very expensive to purchase such technology to use it in personalized learning. So as what Prof mentioned also, like personalized learning does not require the use of technology. Yes, technology enhances it, but the idea of personalized learning comes from humane nature, or basically what comes from the heart. whether you care for the person enough or whether you care for the student's education to cater to that individual. I think another issue with this is that what I foresee is that there will be a lot of, I mean, one thing is the resistance, and it's probably because of the workload that staff members also have. Can you imagine taking care of 10 students under you, each to their individual needs, and on top of that, having to take care of your own responsibilities? I think that is going to be a very big challenge as well. So it's, again, not only for staff to accept it, but how can the institution assist members of the staff to engage with students in a personalized way, whether it's by reducing workload or finding a new system to help enhance this personalized learning.
Thank you. Your response give me some good idea to ask Prof. What is your, I mean, as UKM, as an institution, what kind of support that they give to the lecturer who want to pursue in that way?
Okay. I've just joined University Kebangsaan Malaysia 3 years ago. Before that, I was serving the International Islamic University Malaysia for 12 years. So I worked very long in UIA before I come to UKM. And coming to your question, yes, different institutions give different kinds of support, different extent of supports to the staff in terms of this. And I would say, because your question is about UKM, right? Yes, UKM is very supportive and very open. Not just in terms of personalized learning, but in terms of any methods of learning that is moving towards 21st century education. How do I describe this support? The support comes in several ways. The first most important thing is the university is very open and very, how do I say this? They are very open and they are very flexible in terms of allowing the lecturers to change the methods of teaching and the mode of assessment. When I was in UIE, if you want to change anything in the course outline, it will go up until the Senate for the course outline to be approved before it comes back down to the faculty. That would take months. But in UKM, they allow the change to be done at the faculty level. Say, for example, this semester, I think exam is not the method of assessment that is most effective for my student. Next semester, I want to change to something else. So I make a proposal, I just propose it in the faculty's meeting. If it's approved by everyone in the meeting, then next semester, my course is no longer with exam. So making it very convenient and flexible for the lecturers to do these changes is a form of support, and I find that in UKM. Another way is for us to be given infrastructure support as well. For example, the new Vice Chancellor of UKM has allocated a certain amount of money for each faculty to actually build their own learning space. So this is also another form of support that we can benefit from, because every faculty, every discipline has their own learning experience that is different. So when we are given the flexibility to create our own learning space according to our own needs, that really helps us as well. Apart from that, every IPTAs, I'm not sure about IPTS, but every IPTAs usually have one center called Center for Teaching and Learning Excellence, or Center for Learning Technology, so on and so forth. And although every IPTA has this, but it very much depends on the administration of the university whether or not this center is going to be really active. In UKM, this center is very active. They have lots of workshops, they have lots of support system. We have many programs organized to support the lecturers to do this. Yeah, so yeah, to answer your question, UKM is very open and very supportive to their lecturers about this.
Okay, thank you. So I would like to open question from the participant. Any question?
Thank you very much for enlightening us, all the panelists. My question would be, as far as personalized learning goes, I think it is there for years and years to me, even my era when there was no formal concept of this. Because the personalized learning, we see often the students were introduced to the external by the internal, that they are very good students. And those students were actually good because of their quality question that was asked during the classroom. And these quality questions would come from the students who were the deep learner. I'm not talking of the learning style, I'm talking of the learning approaches, which is superficial, strategic, and deep. Deep learners are the one who always believe in personalized learning. They go deeper and deeper into that. Now, but those students were found ultimately to be not good in assessment. They were not as good at the strategic learner. So end of the day, what we see we talk of the personalized learning. On one extreme is the learning outcome, which in your situation is the learning goals. Measurable become learning outcome. And your extreme is the assessment, right? Content in between. So the deep learner usually will go deeper into it, and they will not be strategic to look at the subtopics which is part of the assessment. So how do you see the personalized learning for the deep learners and keeping two things, learning outcome in one extreme and the assessment of the extreme? Still that no bracketing these two personalized learners to sort of follow the time frame and all. And time frame and all, how do you see this for the deeper learners to cater with the situation of doing well in assessment as well and achieving the learning outcomes?
Sure. So, if I may, and I will again caveat, I'm not a medical educationist, but in my capacity at Elsevier, we work very often with medical educationists. And what we've seen in our experience is that in the short run, the teacher needs to play the role of a guide. And when you identify that somebody is indeed a deep learner, as a guide, you must assess that he may be doing fabulously as a deep learner, but is he doing well as a strategic learner also or not? Because as a faculty, it is your responsibility to make sure that he covers all the bases when it comes to the learning goals or the learning outcomes, right? So he may be a deep learner, but as a guide, if we need to move him away from deep learning, we must do that. If we want to push him further into deep learning to achieve, maybe he has a particular goal where he wants to go into some kind of an academic stream or a research stream, and we want to push him further into deep learning, that's fine. If we want to move him away from that direction, we need to do that. So that's in the short run. In the long run, like I said, the perfect learning scenario, personalized learning scenario would be that is not time bound. So what will happen is that you have your goals. You don't need to finish the module in 6 months, or you don't need to finish the module in 1 year or 5 years. And this is already happening in countries like the US. You are given your learning goals or your learning outcomes. You can achieve those learning outcomes in 3 years or 5 years. Then whether you're a deep learner or a strategic learner starts becoming less important, and what becomes more important is the pace at which you achieve your goals. So it's no longer time bound at all. That's the direction we should be moving in, but there are so many caveats to that. There are so many, it's a whole transformation of the broader education system, so it will take time. In the short run, we need to identify students who are deep learners and then discuss with them whether deep learning is their career path, or should they be exposed to other areas. As me, that's my role as a guide, to be doing that for the faculty, for the students, right? I would like the other panelists also to comment. Doctor?
Anything to say?
My opinion is more or less the same like you. If I could just add, I'm so sorry, but I have a different opinion. Basically, for me, whether that person is a deep learner or a strategic learner, what type of learner does not really matter for me. What matters for me is that by the end of the day, we give support to cater the types of learning style that these students have to achieve the learning outcome. So as long as the learning outcome of the course is fulfilled, so I think that would be sufficient. For example, you said a deep learner would go deeper and whatnot. If going deeper is the requirement of the course, is the learning outcome that I'm searching for, then I'll give support for it. I will try to assist as much as possible. But if the course requires only for the students to reach this level of knowledge, and he has reached that level, then I think that will be sufficient. That's based on my experience. Yeah.
Thank you, Prof.
Could I just add one thing? So I think we have to understand that personalized. This is just an opinion. I'm no expert in the field, but I feel like we need to understand, or basically what I'm echoing what my fellow panelists are saying as well. We need to understand and where to draw the line of personalized learning. Like we cannot give full freedom to students to know how much they need to know. I think as lecturers or staff members, we have to guide us students to know when to stop and when to continue to venture, so that eventually we will be the best in our own careers as well. So yeah, that's just an opinion from from my part.
Thank you. Else? So, you have any more questions?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I was just wondering in the Malaysian context, because you know, in primary school, we've always been brought up with the idea that parrot learning is all that you get from the education system. It still persists today, correct? So I have been through the whole thing in the sense that it was only after I've done all my exams that I became a self-motivated, personalized learner, because I began to teach myself. And I realized that, you know, I've been liberated from the exams, and it is the exams that is confining me to whatever I need to learn and not learning well. So
Students were very angry. They want the lecturing to come back. They don't want this personalized learning because they don't know what is going on actually. All right, so that research somehow, which she shared with all of us, the finding of the research was that students in Malaysia and Singapore, students and their parents are the word used was kiasu. So they really want A's, they really want flying color degrees. So they don't really care whether learning happens or not. Sometimes we're busy teaching that we don't make sure that learning happens, right? But they don't really care whether learning happens. As long as my son or my daughter is a first class honors degree, that is sufficient. So I think coming back to your question, whether something has to change, I think we have to prepare our students first. The students' mentality has to change, because in UKM, when I was the Deputy Director for Learning Technology, one of the most difficult things that we have to do is to ensure to educate the students, not the lecturers. Lecturers are okay, we have KPI, this is instruction from the VC, so we have to do it. Students is like, we don't want this, we want the lecture and then we want the exam and that's it, okay? So you have to educate the students first. Second thing, you can personalize the learning, but if you don't personalize the assessment, I don't think it will help, because I noticed that in my class, I personalize the learning, but the assessment at the end of the semester is still summative. It's still exam. Students become really angry. Then I change it. The next semester, I proposed to the faculty, I don't want an exam anymore. I personalized the learning. It became a success. They love it, because there's no pressure of having to know what's to be prepared for the exam. So I think if you want to change it, you have to change it together, not just, okay, personalize this part, but then assessment still exam, Oh, if you want the exam, we want slides, we want lecture notes, we want everything. So I think it has to come together.
Okay, now I recall what I wanted to say. So basically, I feel that personalized learning shouldn't start at a university level. It should start from foundational level, basically from primary school. So in the research that I've done about personalized learning, I see that a lot of primary school institutions are taking it up first. So it goes in line with the student's mindset. So if I grew up knowing that, okay, you know what, I have some control over my learning and I should have some goals and I should express how I want to learn. In that way, we can see that students will mature along the idea of personalized learning as well. But if we continue this idea of parrot learning from primary school and expect students to change in university to the idea of personalized learning, that's going to be very difficult. It's going to be very difficult to accept the idea once you've grown up with a certain other idea that you know works for sure. Like maybe for me, I know for sure that if I just study my books, I will get good grades in exams. But you know, there's more to education. When you're free from the shackles of what education is now, you will be open to it. But how many students are open to that sort of ideas at a level after knowing all this time that parrot learning works?
Can I add to that? It's, in my opinion, it's not just the shackles of the education system. So we've done a lot of strategy work where we actually bucket countries into academics-driven markets and outcomes-driven markets. So Malaysia, Singapore, India, China, these are all academics-driven market because, as doctor said, people there are kiasu. We have a large population, very small number of good accredited high standard universities producing even fewer number of, I'm very medically focused, so apologize because it's not law, but very few medical graduates who are able to take the burden of the healthcare challenges of those countries. So when there are such major healthcare constraints, it is not only the education system which is under shackles, it is the entire healthcare system which is under shackles, and that's why people tend to be kiasu. They will stick to, okay, we need to pass exams, we need to get our degree, and we need to start working and earning a living. That is the focus. So they are studying to become doctors and earn a salary. Whereas in some of the outcomes driven markets, people are not studying to become, they're not studying to earn a salary, they're studying to become good doctors, good scientists, good researchers. Their parents are not telling them, oh, now you need to start working, now you need to get married. Their parents are telling them, now you must focus on your research, now you must earn a PhD. So until our societies change in that direction, it will be very hard for us to really adopt this personalized learning. And like I said, that's a very complex game to play. It is better to focus on the short-term outcomes, where we just look at, this is the academic market, this is how we need to work with our universities and governments in the academics driven markets, and these are outcomes driven markets. This is our approach for outcomes driven universities and governments for those countries.
Okay.
Just to follow up, it's not only the exams, it's actually the curriculum that has also to change in tandem as well. Because, you know, when I wrote a book with Elsevier, they asked me, okay, because it was an academic book on physiology, they asked me, does it follow any curriculum? I said, no, it is the curriculum that I feel every student should know when they become a doctor. So I try very hard to stick to the old curriculum, but at the same time, I put in content that I thought was very relevant to practicing as a good doctor. So it's very important to understand that as well.
Completely agree with that.
All right, thank you for the question, and thank you for all the panelists. Well, the time is running out. Of course, the transition from here to a better learning environment takes time. But then at least we have done our part to actually go for it rather than just sit here doing nothing. At least we try our best to actually achieve what we want to do. Okay. With that, I would like to end our panel discussion for today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would like to invite Associate Professor Dr. Kang to present a token of appreciation to the speakers and also the moderator. So the moderator, Mr. Raden Yusnaidi Adiputra. Speaker 1, Ms. Natasha Gulati. Speaker 2, Associate Professor Dr. Shahrul Mizan Ismail. And Speaker 3, Abdul Rauf Abdul Rashid.